Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all for today's second in the series e-conference organized by Indian Chemical News. In short, we call it ICN. And the topic for today is Indian Chemicals Creating Collaborative Growth Ecosystem. The first e-conference that we did this month itself was a huge success. And we hope to meet our expectations even today in the second of its series. As per the last count, the total registered delegate is around 500 plus. And I hope we will, majority of them would join us or would have joined by now. Next slide. Just a brief on Indian Chemical News. It's an online resource for news, views, analysis, trends, technology updates, and interviews with prominent leaders in the chemical and petrochemical space. Our aim is to provide independent, authoritative, and interactive chemical and petrochemical information, enabling our customers to make better informed business and planning decisions. Our mission is to be India's most credible information portal for the chemical, petrochemical, and allied industries. The online news portal has been actively covering the chemical and petrochemical sector since 2008. Next slide. If you see, we cover the entire chemical and petrochemical ecosystem. And the list is out there on the left-hand side. If you see the pie chart, we majorly cater to India, Asia, US, and the European market, though we cover even the Asia Pacific and the Middle East. And we are seeing a lot of traction on our website from US, Asia, India, and Europe. Next slide. Just giving you a general guideline. This is a full streamed webinar and you will hear the audio through your computer and mobile speakers. I would request you to participate in the discussion by posting your questions anytime during the e-conference. By clicking on the chat window at the bottom of your screen, we will take Q&A at the end of panel discussion. This webinar is recorded and we will post the recording of the webinar, the e-conference, on indianchemicalnews.com. Just a brief on our Indian Chemical News. It's a part of Sindhu Media Private Limited. We have two portals, DG Analysis and Indian Chemical News. And both these portals focuses on passing information through website, daily newsletters, publishing research-led reports, organizing industry events, conducting e-conferences and others. In terms of ICN, we also have a repository of video-led content. The total unique visitors is 18.5K. The total page views is around 45.4K, and the newsletter subscription is around 12.7K. With respect to the agenda, this is what we have planned. 2 to 3 minutes by each speaker, followed by panel discussion, followed by Q&A. Next slide. We have excellent industry stalwarts who are participating in today's e-conference. We have Mr. Rajendra Gogri from CMD Aarti Industries. We have Mr. Raman Ramachandran, MD and CEO Pi Industries. Mr. Ankur Singh, Head Strategy and Business Development, DCM Sriram. Mr. Shailendra Deshpande, Joint President and CMO, Chlorine Derivatives, Grasim Industries. Mr. Ankit Patel, Executive Director, Bodil Chemicals. And Mr. Sudeep Maheshwari, Senior Principal, Kearney. And I, myself, Praveen Prashant, Editor, Indian Chemical News, who is moderating and this particular event. Next slide. What we are focusing on today, these are the 5 pointers that we are talking about, but speakers can also talk beyond these 5 pointers that we have planned as such, because we want to get a 360-degree view on what's happening with respect to the Indian chemical industry, with respect to creating collaborative growth ecosystem, positioning of India in the global chemical industry, infrastructure challenges, bridging the trade gap, taking advantage of the current global scenario, and implementing a robust policy in a time-bound manner. I hope with these 360 views from Indian chemical news, from the industry stalwarts, from the delegate, will help us give us an entire spectrum of what's happening and how do we plan to move ahead so that in a collaborative model, everybody wins. Now, to start with, I would request Mr. Sudeep Maheshwari, Senior Principal, Kearney, to give presentation on Indian chemical industries, so that he can lay the ground rule and on that, our industry veterans will like to move forward. So over to Sudeep.
Thank you, Praveen. I hope everyone can hear me all right.
Yeah, you are audible, Sudeep.
All right. Well, Praveen, thanks a lot first for organizing this and inviting me to this. It's my pleasure to,
You have to raise your voice a bit, Sudeep.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, it's okay now.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Praveen, for organizing this and inviting me here. It's a privilege to share my views with the fellow panelists here. Let me introduce myself. So I'm a senior principal with Kearney, being more of a chemical engineer than a consultant. I mean, I have a bachelor's and a doctorate in chemicals, worked in R&D for a while before jumping onto consulting. In consulting, primarily focusing on chemical industry, both global MNCs when I was part of the New York office, and now in India, dealing with a lot of mid-sized chemical companies to either improve their growth or profitability and a whole bunch of operational topics. So let me take 5 minutes to quickly set the context of how we see Indian chemical industry in the context of the global picture. I mean, of course, I mean, one thing I think we'll all resonate to is, I mean, it's Indian chemical industry is definitely one of the rising stars if I look at globally. I mean, in terms of growth rate, superb growth rate in last 10 years. I mean, 7 to 8% roughly in petrochemicals, 10 to 12% in specialty. And more importantly than the historic growth rate, there's a significant headroom to grow. I mean, we're still, if you look at a per capita consumption on different chemicals, we are far lower than global average, much lower if I compare to the Western world, and that is reflected in the investor community sentiment as well. I mean, if we look at the enterprise value by EBITDA, we are roughly about 2x, around 18-20 on an average for most of the major Indian chemical companies compared to the global ones, which are more around 9 to 10. And I mean, the things have been improving, especially with the China environment, trade war, and now COVID. I mean, the export opportunity is continuously looking much more promising. So that's the context with which we start. I mean, of course, can't go without saying a few words about COVID. I mean, but we see COVID as a short-term hiccup from our overall growth trajectory. Of course, the view will vary depending on individual chemical players and what end markets they are exposed to. For example, pharma, food, flavor fragrances, if we are catering to some of these end segments, the COVID impact is minimal. But if we go to on the right side, paints, dye, pigments, textile, the COVID impact will be substantial. But in our view, we still see it as a short-term hiccup. We believe that the long-term growth story, given the fundamentals around per capita, given the fundamentals around GDP, they remain intact. I mean, if we move forward in our view, Sushil, if you move forward. Yeah, I mean, if I look at petrochemicals, we require almost 1 world-scale cracker capacity each year for the next 15 years to feed the India demand. If we look at specialty chemicals, almost close to $60 billion opportunity in next decade. If I talk about agrochemicals, and this is something probably we have just started, but we believe the 2020s decade could be what we saw from an economic reforms point of view in 1990s, which can really improve the farmers' income and which will reflect in the agrochemicals as well as the non-urea fertilizers that get consumed in the sector. So overall, we do believe it's a robust story. However, I see a lot of optimism right now. We take it more of as a cautious optimism. There are still fundamentals that will need to be worked upon for sector to really realize its true potential. I mean, if I look at the overall sector, I mean, we are still relatively subscale. I mean, if you look at top left, I mean, some statistics, number of chemical companies which are above $1 billion in India, and I'm removing the fertilizers and some of the oil and gas majors here. But we have hardly 7 to 8 companies which cross $1 billion compared to US and China, where you see the numbers. The cost of operations remain higher. I mean, putting 2 representatives here as a power price and logistics. I mean, we have significantly high power prices compared to a China or a US. In terms of ease of doing business, I think, one metric I wanted to reflect is how many MNCs have large asset investments into India. Pretty much none today, versus China, where we still see a lot of global majors playing into this. And last, I mean, the R&D and the innovation part is still something that sector is coming up. Again, there are individuals within the Indian sector who have done superbly, but as a sector overall, I think we are still under-indexed when it comes to the amount of, R&D activity and the innovation that is happening. I mean, as an example, if I look at agrochemicals, globally, somewhere around 9% is what, as a percent of revenue, people will invest to discover new products, new molecules. We are still, around 1.5%. So these are the things, that need to be kind of kept in mind. It's nothing will change overnight, but definitely the potential is there. So what does that mean? I mean, if you go forward, and there are implications both from an individual chemical player. Sushil, if you move forward, please. Yeah, so I mean, 3 key things we see from an individual chemical company perspective, what they can do. I think first and foremost is moving more and more towards differentiated and resilient portfolios. What I mean by that is bringing innovation in the portfolio, catering to emerging customer needs, and as well as diversifying beyond a single chain or single end use to really make it more resilient and less volatile from a market perspective. The second more important one, I would say, is the entire partnership gamut, and I'm merging quite a few things here. I do believe that, I mean, partnership, whether it's on the sales side, which is making in India for global players, I think that's a very, very definitive opportunity. We ourselves have worked on some of these, supporting some of our clients in Western world to discover, strategic partnerships in India. The second partnership I'm talking about is the building block sharing. We all know that, I mean, there is a fundamental intermediate and specialty feedstock availability gap in India. I mean, there are a lot of petrochemicals coming up. I think now is the time where petrochemicals and chemicals start working together, which can add a lot of value to both the participants. The third is around M&A. I mean, while the global M&A activities have been tremendous in chemicals over last 3-4 years, in India, still it has been very sporadic. We do believe that the current pandemic will generate opportunities, as well as some of the existing players look to scale up. M&A would be one of the key things that they need to look. Last one, on the third theme, digital and analytics goes without saying. I mean, absolutely must for all the players. Right now, it can give significant edge both on the operation side as well as business model sides. 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we believe it will become table stakes. You have to be digitally and automation all embedded in your systems to remain competitive. That's on an individual chemical company side. From a government and overall sector stakeholders point of view, I mean, we have done a lot on the regulatory, but quite a lot remains to be done. I mean, if I talk a simple example, land acquisition still remains a big challenge in several projects. Clearances and the clarity around environment is still something that a lot of our clients grapple with on a day-to-day basis. And then, of course, given our given way we are positioned in India, and to really able to shore up the chemical sector, there are duty allowances and incentives that also need to be brought in here. The second bit is around supply chain and utility infrastructure. Again, I mean, a lot has been happening here, but I think we need more. I mean, we saw statistics that we are much higher, in terms of logistics spend compared to some of our global peers like China as well as in US. And that is something that will again require, significant effort. On the energy side, inherently, we may not be expensive, but policy reforms are needed in that entire sector, which will definitely benefit chemical industries quite a lot. The third, given our, the situation around feedstock, I think the industrial park is definitely way to go. There was a lot of talks about TCPIR. They haven't materialized. I mean, this is something that is super important given our situation. I mean, Singapore, China, even Korea to an extent, they have cashed in on that despite being feedstock short. And I mean, at least here we see, don't start with 6 or 7 different TCPIRs. Start with one, make it a showcase, but it needs to be really implemented in a mission mode, almost like some of the other mega projects that have been taken up in the country, whether it's Delhi Metro, NMCC or something. So these are some of the starting thoughts. Again, I'll take a pause here, Praveen, back to you for the discussion.
Thanks, Udit, for giving the overview about present case scenario and also how future would look like. And now I would request my other panelists to come at this stage and speak for 2 to 3 minutes for the introductory remarks, followed by the panel discussion that we will go for. So straight away, I would request Mr. Rajendra Gogri, sir, CMD Aarti Industries, to give his views.
Good afternoon, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. Very interesting news yesterday was there that there is a silver lining, and first time Indian chemical sector had a trade surplus, which was very interesting. Last 1 year the total trade export went down for India as a country as a whole for merchandise category, whereas the chemical export had grown. So as mentioned in an earlier slide also, that we are sitting on a very huge opportunity in last few years, and there is a tremendous appetite of chemical from especially specialty chemical and intermediates from India, and India can become a specialty chemical powerhouse. But we have to have a very comprehensive integrated policy. So our industry is very integrated from petrochemical feedstock to intermediates and finished specialty chemical, pharmaceutical and agrochemical. And it is essential that collaborative version is very important. As I give you an example, we got ethylene from Reliance by pipeline for a specialty intermediate. So which will be only worth about $1 million or so. But once we make this intermediate, UPL is going to make an agrochemical out of it, metallochlor. And India will generate maybe $50 to $70 million exports out of that. And the total investment of $30 to $40 million has taken place. This integrated nature is very important. Another thing is on environmental side, our industry is such that in the same reactor, you can make a different product of different quantities and all. So we should move on environmental agnostic, product agnostic norms. Once you have a norms fixed, you should be allowed to make of whichever product within that norms. And currently, this pharmaceutical for government has given a scheme for pharmaceutical intermediates. The same kind of situation is there in other intermediates, like a lot of agrochemical intermediates are not currently made in India. Even some dye-stuff intermediates are also not made in India. If the similar scheme is also done for other intermediates, that can really drive both the intermediate as well as downstream. So we are in a sweet spot. Now we have to, as an industry and government, should combine and make this decade for chemicals, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Gogri sir. Now I would request Dr. Raman Ramachandran, MD and CEO, PI Industries, to give his views.
Yeah, thank you, Praveen. So it is PI Industries. Yeah. So let me give you a quick background about myself. So I have been, of course, Rajendra knows me. We go back quite a few years. Before my current role as MD of PI, I used to be the CMD of BASF India and spent about 22 years in BASF. So I'm kind of very familiar with the chemical value chain from the very commodity, and of course, a number of my years has been spent in the agrochemical area. So just to give you a quick background. Now, I want to just add on to what Sudeep talked about, and I want to kind of talk about, yes, the opportunity is huge for specialty chemicals. I think it is linked very closely to our GDP growth, absolute GDP growth, and also GDP growth as on a per capita basis. I think across the world, in my career during BASF, it was an established norm that whenever the per capita GDP increases to from $2,500 to $3,000, that is when the chemical demand goes up exponentially. So I think we are getting there. I believe we are still not there. So the opportunity is huge. And if you have to capitalize on that, and as Sudeep pointed out, without huge petrochemical investments, this is not going to happen. And India has been trying for a number of years to get an integrated petrochemical kind of an investment going. This hasn't happened. A number of times it hasn't happened because just the chemical demand wasn't there. Many times it has not happened because you didn't have a supportive environment. I'm very proud to say that it was during my time in BASF that probably the first announcement for a petrochemical investment actually happened by BASF with an investment of about 2 billion in Mundra. This is a project that still needs to see the light of the day, but I'm still hopeful. And probably in another 5 years' time, you would have propylene value chain probably, activated from there. So, this is just to underscore that if you look at how did China become so big, one was the GDP. The second was that they started with many such backward integrated petrochemical setups already. So, the value added specialty chemical was made or enabled by the existence of these intermediates and raw materials locally. Yeah. And just to add on to what Rajendra talked about, there are a number of agrochemicals that are currently being produced in India, and I'll give you a few examples, and just to illustrate the importance of the intermediates. So you have a product like Mancozeb. I think most of the Mancozeb that is used in the world is today produced in India. Now, a key ingredient for Mancozeb is ethylene diamine, most of which is imported. I mean, actually, there is no ethylene diamine production in India. This is all imported from global, and it is a fairly significant part of Mancozeb production. You have something like pendimethalin, another big herbicide that is produced, which has got propionic acid. Ethylene diamine comes from the ethylene value chain in the petrochemical chain. Then you have pendimethalin, where there are two big ingredients that are still imported, propionic acid and also EDK and 4-NOx. And propionic acid comes from the BDO value chain. So the message being that you cannot, if you want to really have a thriving, end product manufacturing industry, you cannot ignore the need for the back-end investment as well. So I think as we move forward, this has to be one key area where we as industry need to, really work with the government to make sure that such investments are made. Yeah? And this is also the opportunity for collaboration, because there are some companies that are very good at these intermediate productions, and there are others who are good at, bringing them together in, as an end product. Now, I just want to conclude with two more very, very important things that often gets overlooked, which is if you are in this business and if you are going to be an exporter, and also if you're going to be provider for the local industry, I think there are two things that absolutely is becoming more and more a basic requirement. For example, one is EHS, safety. Now there are regulations, but it is not just about adhering to regulations. I think the culture of safety in the plant, and I think as a member of the agrochemical industry, every time there is an accident or a chemical industry, every time there is an accident in one of the companies, it makes me nervous, because this means that the government is going to put more regulations. It is going to create a bad image for the industry. And as all of you will agree, in the last 3 months, we have seen our fair share of accidents in our industry. So I think EHS, which is driving down to the culture of safety to the last person who is engaged. It is even more difficult in our context because the basic value for life in our country is unfortunately low. The basic recognition for safety is unfortunately low. So as industry leaders, I think we cannot get away from really, working together to drive this high level of awareness and concern for safety in the chemical industry, and whatever we can do together to make this happen will be of great help. The second part is sustainability. I think this is going to become, if you are an exporter to major companies across the world and even Western Europe or North America, etc., sustainability and what is your position on sustainability is going to be a critical differentiator. There are multinational companies, as we speak today, are taking a decision saying that, by 2030, I will be carbon neutral, which means the vendor that I deal with also needs to have a carbon neutral policy. So these are all realities today. The COVID might kind of delay it by a year or two, but these are already in pipeline, and these are going to be key, key considerations in making a decision as to who do I buy something from. So we cannot ignore that. So if we have to thrive and build this industry for the next 10 to 20 years, I think the sustainability and how we as an industry are going to adhere to this and develop our own capability to do this is going to be extremely important. So with that, I'll stop and hand the mic back to Praveen.
Thank you, Mr. Ramachandran, for giving good insight about your experience as well as the way forward for the chemical industry. Now, I would request Mr. Shailendra Deshpande, Joint President and Chief Marketing Officer, Grasim Industries, to give his views.
Good afternoon, Praveen. Thank you and the ICN team for inviting me to this event. So, when we look at chemical industries, they say it's an industry of industries. You can't think of any value chain or end industries. So it's pharmaceuticals, packaging, paints, even automobiles, metal, everywhere. If you work backward, somewhere chemical industry has a significant presence as a supplier of raw material or as a supplier of intermediates to these different industries. As was talked by Sudeep, when you look at different segments, there are certain industries even who are doing good, but even in the current downturn, like pharmaceuticals, agrochemicals, water treatment. That's another interesting area where we focus a lot. As you have been hearing, there is as we go along, as the population of India and the world increases, there's going to be a acute need of chemicals and treatment to make water. One is, of course, for potable purpose, and second is also recycle and reuse. So that's another interesting area on specialty chemicals. So where as a company you are in this value chain will determine, how you go ahead and survive despite this small hiccup. And pharmaceuticals is a classic example where, we are in fact 3 steps behind the drug companies. And I know of, so if you talk about a drug like ibuprofen or Brufen, India is among the topmost country in the world in terms of capacity. So if those kind of drugs, and more you will see such drugs coming where you will have world-class capacity, and then people who are in the value chain as a supplier of intermediates or raw materials. So we are one of the raw material supplier to this industry. To try to gain as the industry goes. One which we have been talked about is the chemical industry in India. I mean, it's $180 billion, a big size. But when you look at the total global chemical industry, which is $5 trillion, so we are just about a 3%. And then again, when you drill down into specialty chemicals, it's just about 22% of the overall chemical industry in India. Now, what drives the specialty chemicals? Of course, the availability of feedstock, which has been talked about, which is very clear. One of the things which I think very important is innovation. So how do you collaborate with world-class organizations or universities in India, whether it is NCL or ICT or IIT, and industries working in collaboration with this world-class institutes to really generate molecules which can catapult the specialty chemical business. And as we see the current situation, I mean, we all know that for a lot of raw material, the world depends on China. But that is an opportunity for Indian company where you can select chemicals and work in collaboration with these universities. In fact, even in collaboration with multinational companies, invest in R&D and innovation. I mean, that can be a big differentiator as we move into the specialty chemical business. Another important thing other than innovation I see, which is also very important, is digitization. If you look at a chemical plant, I mean, there are millions and millions of data which you can gather from the reactors, the isothermals, the time, the pressure, etc. Now, how can we digitize this and ensure that, by digitization, we not only improve yield and productivity, but also make the process safe. So that's another interesting area. So digitization, and in fact, today I was reading the news, in fact, just today, that where an agrochemical company has given a big contract to ABB for digitizing their internal processes. I mean, this is an excellent start. I mean, that's something which can really teach us what's happening in the process side. And also as an industry, we can get in newer technologies and improve our process and improve productivity. And at the same time, most important for the chemical industry is safety. So I think these are the things which can help us to drive towards specialty chemicals, at the same time, make it a safe and sustainable industry for the country.
Thank you, Deshpande ji. Now I request Ankur Singh, Head Strategy Business Development, TCM Sriram, to give his views.
Thanks, Praveen. I would just add on to the panelists who have spoke before me and given a very good insight about the chemicals. I'll quickly just segregate the whole talk into the three bracket, which is the global, India, and the coming back to the basic chemicals, because this is where I come from. As things have started moving up globally, there are a lot of guesses out that it's going to be a V-shaped growth or return, or we're going to be U-shaped return. I think it's going to be a zigzag growth path for most of the exporting economy, including us, because as our domestic production is gearing up, we will see uneven demand depending upon which geography is coming out of the COVID at what pace. And therefore, you will, while these are the early days, but as you see the Q2 and Q3 settling down, you will see the real picture, how the rest of our customers are faring up. And that will have a more sustainable picture so far as our overall chemical exports are growing up. Because if you look at Europe or China, we get a two different picture in terms of the consumption as well as the growth. So therefore, while we have a good signals so far as exports are concerned, but the real picture would be much clearer as we go into end of the Q2 and Q3. Coming back to the domestic industry, I think this is a very right time for an Indian chemical industry to look at the cost structures, whether it's a specialty or the basic chemical or otherwise. Because earlier, for any recession or any economic downturn, the response has been fairly knee-jerk. Cut the cost by X percentage, do this, right? This is an opportunity for all of us to look at the cost structure throughout the value chain, and wherever the optimization can be done instead of just looking at, because while there are a lot of news that the companies are disillusioned from China, they want to come back and set up the base in India. In reality, that's not easy. There is establishment in China which has supported them on infrastructure, on the cost level. So it's not going to happen unless we improve our internal cost structures, our regulations, our approval systems, and everything else there. Especially for in Gujarat, we have been hearing that there is a lot of inquiries towards the land purchase by a lot of chemical companies from Europe. Now, this might, in a short term, increase the price or the availability of land. But how many of these inquiries turning up into reality? That is a time to see. So for me, overall, these are early days to look at the green shoots. But compared to the other economies, I think the Indian chemical industry is much more poised. Coming back to the basic chemicals, especially the industry which I belong to, I think this has given us a very good opportunity to just look back the way we run the operations. We can no longer be at mercy of the commodity cycle. That 3 year is going to be a good cycle, 2 year is going to be downturn. If we look at the last 25-year data, the upturn of a commodity cycle has shortened. So you have an upswing, but a much shorter period. But the downturn of the commodity cycle is extended. So you have a smaller window of adjusting your ROI of a new project. Therefore, the Indian producers have really think about the cost structure, and cost structures, the opportunity for the cost structures are enormous. We often compare ourselves with the pharma industry. The level of digitalization and the level of optimization into the value chain has been done by pharma. The chemical industry is far, far away from that. Even if we look at the activity within our production system, and wherever we see the amount of contract labor is involved, that itself presents a huge opportunity to see how much we can automate. And as we grow on the scale, both on whether it is a basic chemical, intermediate, or a specialty, or a fine chemical, I think these small things will add up to, in my assessment, roughly 4 to 5% EBITDA saving. So if you really want to be a destination to attract FDI, if you really want to be export-led player, I think the cost has to be optimized smartly. It can no longer be a knee-jerk reaction. And for that, I think India is fairly poised. This is a good platform. I think this COVID has given us a very good platform to look at these operational issues as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ankur. Now I would request Mr. Ankit Patel, Executive Director, Bodal Chemicals, to give his views, and then we will jump into panel discussion.
Thank you, Praveen. Thank you for this opportunity to be part of this great panel today here. There has been a lot of talk about how this industry can grow in India, which really shows a promise in the next coming 10 years. But I also see a lot of challenges. Last about 4 or 5 years, there has been a buzz that next 10, 15 years is really good for the Indian chemical industries because it's brought this opportunity. But I really believe that it's not going to be that easy because if you look at how China grew in the late 80s and 90s, that's when they had a double-digit growth in chemical sector. If you look at what the Chinese government did, what all expenses they had compared to the Indian levels currently were much more promising and more beneficial. So I think similarly, looking at the opportunity, the government, also the industry players, we all need to realize and really encash on this opportunity. Also, I would like to just give a couple of examples. Earlier, when China was growing tremendously, our trade has this
a substitute of imports, which has been around for more than 20, 30 years. And that's always been a disturbance, if I say, to the margins, to the prices. The main reason was always this, that their competitiveness was always better than Indian players. And so if Indian companies and Indian sector, really wants to grow, really want to encash this opportunity that's coming in next 10 years, the export incentives, with China earlier used to have even in some cases double digits. The power cost, which is again a large cost in chemical manufacturing, that used to be subsidized, which is not here in India. So similar things have to be recognized, I think, by the government. And again, EHS is again very important, because if you want to grow, if you want to become a global player, if you want to start working with global players, then EHS is also very important. So these are some of the things that I think are very important for the Indian chemical sector to encash in the next 10 years.
Thanks, Ankit, for giving your introductory remarks. Now we would jump straight away to the panel discussion. And the focus is, how do we create as well as collaborate and come out with a good ecosystem which will benefit everybody. So Gogri, sir, if you can throw a few lights based on your industry experience of last so many decades, how we can benefit, because you gave a very good example of how Reliance is producing something, you doing some value additions, and then UPL takes it and takes it to the market. So if you can talk about such collaboration in future, it will definitely help everybody, sir.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier also, that a lot of intermediates are not available right now in India, just like in pharma. And more and more, as the demand is there, currently there is appetite, but a lot of research will be required. And we can have a collaborative research or even an open-ended research. Government can give project to various technical institute, and that research is available to all the anybody who wants. So it is essential that this entire chain manufacturing happens in India. And one more concept which can be done is like first in India, the product which is not manufactured in India for last 10 years. If somebody manufactured in next 5 years, then for 5 years, if you give them incentive, because why these intermediates are not made in India, because there are two disadvantages. One is of the scale, and second is of the technology. So if such kind of advantage, some incentive scheme is given, that can really spur the investment in all these intermediates, and then it will further, expand the downstream. So that collaboration is essential.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Raman Ramachandran, sir, your view, sir.
Yeah, I think in the chemical industry, it is, collaboration is the way to really succeed. And I think I can think of several areas where collaboration can happen. We have always waited for government to give us, this PCPIR kind of environment where we can have collective, strength coming from EHS or waste treatment, etc. I can even, there are quite a number of us who are in Dahej. Why are we waiting for the government to do this? Can we not get together and create some common infrastructure and thereby gain, tremendous cost synergies from this? So I think it really calls for a different kind of leadership. I think the other conventional area is very, very clearly, there are certain companies which are very strong in certain chemistries. And I think this is a natural area of collaboration, where instead of us trying to kind of reinvent everything, can we kind of leverage each other's strength and, create, greater value. Yeah. So I believe there is a lot of examples of such collaboration that already exist in the country and outside the country. Yeah. So I believe, I think really what it calls for is some will to succeed together and some leadership in the part of the industry to really make it happen.
Thank you, sir. I would request Sailendra Deshpande to give his views on the collaborative model.
So, as said by Mr. Ramchandran, I mean, collaboration, of course, one is which government facilitates through this PCPIR or chemical parks and so on. And of course, there are some things which are happening still not to the expectation of the industry. Having said that, I mean, can we look at collaboration amongst ourselves? I mean, for example, we are a chloralkali company in chlorine, which is one of the feedstock for the chemical industry. So we produce that. So we are constantly looking at, people who can, come and across the fence. I mean, can put up their facilities, because we know that we can't make each and every chlorine derivative. So our intention is, so beyond a point, we cannot. So we are looking at collaborative model where somebody who has strength in chemistry for a particular molecule, and by the way, if it uses chlorine, please come and collaborate with us. I mean, we are open for discussions. I mean, those are the kind of initiatives. We have started that in a big way in our facility in Vilayat near Bharuch. We are coming up with a new greenfield in Kakinada, where I think we are more and more actively looking at how can we leverage this particular building block in India, which you all know we have enough of chlorine in India. And when I go to some of the Western worlds, I mean, their chlorine is at a premium. So with that, I think collaboration. So each of us can look at collaborating and see how we can, together support a chemistry and a value chain.
Thank you, sir. Ankur, can you give your views on?
Sure, I think
because this is definitely going to affect our input cost to a great extent if we collaborate.
Absolutely, Praveen. I think I'll just add to what Shailendra ji has said. Running a chloralkali business is as good as running a power plant, because utility business, because it's a raw material for your basic chemicals. And the way we have been working on, and we have created a network of pipeline around our site in Jagadia, and Mr. Gogri's company is one of them. It actually helps you in a two big way. Number one, you are not actually handling and transporting a product like chlorine. The pipeline is one of the safest way to handle the chlorine. And if you look at Europe or America, close to 85 to 90% chlorine is handled via pipeline, compared to India, which is where it is not even 20%. So the collaboration between the basic chemical producer and the people who add value is a kind of need of an hour. It's no longer a solution. It's like it need to be done. Wherever there is an expansion plan happening among these two large companies, there is a possibility where one brings its own strength and other try to add value, because the scale, the nature of the business are completely different. For example, if you are a chloralkali player, you become a utility company in itself. And then you can use and sell those utility output as well. You can use a steam, you can use other derivatives. So for us, if we are looking at the optimizing the cost structures, because cost going to go up. Earlier, the biggest challenge was power availability. Now the biggest challenge is producing the power at a cheaper rate, because coal and the uses of coal would be under scrutiny by government of India on a regular basis. There will be green tax, there would be various other regulatory measures which will discourage you to use the coal. And then you have to go for various sources. So therefore, I think adding to what all my panelists said, that it is better that while government is doing its bit, wherever we are connected through the businesses across the value chain, and whenever we are looking for a next phase of expansion or the value add, let's look at all the synergies which is available on the table and try to leverage on that. Definitely, there would be a huge amount of cost synergy and benefit for the both.
Thanks, Ankur. Ankit, if you can throw light on
Yes.
the collaborative model, and I believe your company would be doing some of them already. So how do you foresee in future the collaborative model ecosystem which benefits everybody in the long run?
So we call our company the most integrated dyestuff company of India. The reason why we say this is that our main unit, which generates about 80% of the revenue, that is all within one complex. It has its own 2 power plants. It uses waste heat, converts it into steam. There's about 500, 600 tons of steam that we use every day, which is a byproduct. Again, similarly, there are many liquid chemicals that are produced. They are all transported. The pipeline is about 1 kilometer long. And all the 3 product lines that company is into, that is all produced within the complex. So what that has done prior to that, that was developed between 2007 and 2010. Prior to that, company had about 6, 7 different locations where these synergies were not present at all. So the kind of economy that this unit brings in, it's unbelievable. For example, in China, some of the chemical parts are even few steps higher than this. They are much better than this. There would be a huge piece of, let's say, a couple of thousand acres of area, where they'll create a chemical park, which will have its own power plant, which will have its own bulk chemicals like chloralkali complexes, sulfuric acid plants. It will also be at the port. So everything becomes, right there. Schemes are available for sale. You can buy hydrogen, you can buy chlorine, caustic, everything by pipelines. So this can really reduce a lot of the cost. And if India really wants to become a global player, really want to grow the stake at the global scale, then India also needs to work like this, in this collaborative manner.
Sudeep, I would request your views. You have already given in the presentation, but if you can also talk about the collaborative part as such.
No, absolutely. Sure. Look, this is how everyone has developed where the feedstock was shortage, right? If you look at, I love to quote the Singapore example. They don't have the cheap gas like US does, but they have a good thriving industry, Jurong Island. And it's perfectly on the back of the Exxon Mobils and the likes who have set up the big plant, and then everyone is kind of shepherding around that. In India, I would, talking to various clients, I'll tell you what we see has been a hiccup so far. There's a bit of a cultural change in addition to the economic thing that is, in the way of really be able to collaborate. If I take ethylene example, the players who are producing ethylene would like to monetize it to polyethylene and so on and so forth. So ultimately, we end up diverting a lot of that to the commodities. So I think needs to probably change a little bit. And there has to be a longer term economic calculation that needs to be kept in mind, which can really generate a lot of value for everyone. I do see though, in the past 1 or 2 years, when we have been talking to clients, the receptiveness to collaboration between petchem and specialty chem, especially from the petchem side, has increased. We see a lot more, amenability to some of the concepts that have been talked about here. There are a lot of opportunities in India. We have tons of benzene, we export benzene, then we take up styrene. We have the entire butadiene chain that is completely missing, while we are surplus on butadiene. In the past, we didn't have the scale to get to some of those, but now we have the enough demand in the country to be able to set up some of these things. And I do believe that this is something that will go forward much more in this decade than what it was the case before. All the things around industrial parks, I think, are already covered, so I'll skip that.
Sudeep, I come back to you the second round, and then we will open it up for Q&A. So would request all the delegates to please type in.
Mr. Raman is saying something.
Yeah,
yes,
no,
sir.
I just had a related question to Sudeep, staying on the subject of collaboration. I was just wondering how much the role of, strict enforcement of legal contracts and respect for IP plays in collaboration. Because we are in chemical industry, there is a fair amount of innovation that all of us do. If there is no respect culturally for IP, and if contract cannot be well quickly reinforced, will collaboration really happen?
Yeah, no, Mr. Raman, absolutely. In fact, that's what we hear from a lot of our global clients. That's why, especially when it comes to R&D collaboration, I think some of the points that you mentioned become absolutely important. I still see it as a step 2 collaboration, step 3 collaboration. The first most basic one is sharing some of these building blocks and making an economy out of it. That has lesser of those IP hassles, and I think that's where we need to start. But yeah, I mean, some of these things will need to be sorted out for having really R&D kind of collaboration. I mean, the good thing is globally, even if BASF and Dow can collaborate on a propylene oxide, I mean, these are like two big, you can almost say competitors, they can still collaborate on certain projects, then why can't we?
Sudeep, now I come to the second round, and this I would request all our panelists to be precise. What I'm asking is, for the collaborative model to flourish, there are three main pillars, which is the industry, the government, and the investor community. So what I'm asking from all the panelists is, for the collaborative model to flourish, what would be the role of the industry, what would be the role of the government, and what would be the role of the investor? Because if these three can come together, I think collaborative model flourishes anywhere in the world, and India will also do the same. So Sudeep, your first quick reaction to.
I think, look, I mean, anything from the government side probably will take a bit more longer time. I think between industry, it can be much more quicker. I do see a lot of cases which make economic sense even today, provided the parties can come together. I mean, I'll take a very simple example. Chlorine caustic soda, which, Mr. Deshpande, you talked about. If I look from a petrochemical side, I mean, everyone is hesitant to produce PVC, which we are big time short in India, because there's a chlorine angle to it and the handling and the caustic soda that comes with it. If I look from, Mr. Shellen's side, I mean, they have enough uses for caustic soda, but they would love to have a partner for chlorine. So, I mean, there are some of these opportunities. I think it requires a lot more proactive discussion between the industry players. I think that's where I highlighted also, there's a bit of this receptiveness that needs to go up for some of these things to proceed. And we need to look at a bit more longer term gain and not exactly, the returns within first 1 or 2 years. I mean, that's what I would say. I mean, the government side, I think enough said and covered by everyone. I mean, the key thing would be around sorting out some of these regulations and really the industrial parks. I mean, this topic has been beaten up so much that I feel even hesitant to repeat it, but that's the reality. I mean, Dahej, we publicize a PCPIR, but I mean, when I look at it, nobody is really sharing any building blocks in Dahej. If you compare that with Jurong Island, if you compare that with Antwerp, if you compare with anywhere, I mean, there's so much sharing of building blocks. I mean, some of the guidelines, some of the effort around that, I think can go a long way.
Thanks, Sudeep. I would request Ankit to give his views, and I would request him to be precise.
I think that chemical associations and also the departments or the ministries should start some kind of forums where such ideas are presented and discussed, because there are a lot of SMEs here across in India, which are thriving to grow, but then we are not necessarily that they are all aware about, let's say, DCM Shriram having some chlorine available, or Grasim Industries having some chlorine available. So there are players in North India, in some parts of Maharashtra, Gujarat. So I think there is some kind of a platform where the sellers and the buyers can be present and can discuss ideas and try to convert that into actual collaboration.
Thanks, Ankit. Ankur, if you can throw light in a minute or so.
Yeah, I think if I really have to pick one issue, which I think coming from a chloralkali industry and associated value chain affects us, is really government should relook at the duty structures. I mean, everybody knows the amount of focus has been given for FTAs, because the amount disadvantageous position we are in vis-a-vis import is so significant that it's difficult for a domestic industry to be competitive. And irrespective of how much capacity we add of caustic soda in India, there will always be a threat of import looming, because there is a structural difference globally. Caustic soda industry they have a better sink of a chlorine because of the PVC. Indian domestic industry have a PVC sink just 8%, globally, which is a 30%. So we have inherent disadvantage as a domestic industry of caustic soda. And on top of that, when you get a cheap import coming from Japan, almost 1 or 1.5% duty, because at some point back we have signed an FTA, it actually affects the industry adversely. I mean, if you look at, it's not just our chemical, it's various other chemical. We are not reasonably competitive as Southeast Asian countries are. This really need to look at it, some kind of duty support or non-tariff barriers. But until something done around that, we'll always be hesitant in terms of the expanding exponentially.
Thank you, Ankur. Mr. Shailendra Deshpande, sir, if you can throw light on that.
Yeah, so one of the things which I look at is, these are all hazardous chemicals, and I am mainly talking from the chlorine perspective. And when, Sudeep talked about this Jurong Island or similar parks, you see pipelines crisscrossing from company to company. I mean, so that needs clearance, faster clearance. That's one, so how do we manage those things and get support from the government? And second, most important is also effluent generation. So how can we have, this government help to have a common effluent which can, which can take care, and that's the second. And third is, of course, sharing of utilities, a mechanism by which, if I have a power surplus, is there an easy way that I can pass those to my collaborators? Any other utilities, power is one of them. You can hydrogen or any other utility. So a mechanism of sharing this. So that's probably 3 things which I can.
Thank you, Mr. Deshpande. Dr. Ramachandran, you were talking about IPs, and I just wanted to add a small bit on that particular part. What are the new IPs that you are working for de-risking your current operations and opening new opportunities, which will help also in the collaborative model that we are talking about?
Now, obviously, I can't discuss details of the new IPs. All I would like to say is there are a number of areas from process development to new molecule discoveries that we are investing in to create IP.
And any specific point on the collaborative model in brief, if you can talk about?
So I mean, and that was also the question that I had with the earlier question about the respect for IP, etc. In the current environment, the levels of collaboration that we do is albeit quite limited because of these concerns. And so I think for me, if such collaborations has to increase, the IP respect from regulation, from an implementation, from consistent, transparent way regulations are implemented, intellectual property is respected, has to go to a next level, even for a collaboration between an academic and an industry to happen.
Thank you, sir. I would request now Mr. Rajendra Gogri. Sir, you are coming up with a R&D center in Bombay, and this is also going to help the industry in a big way to come up with new products which can be deployed later. And so in the collaborative model, how do you see the R&D center, sir?
No, as you see, there is a lot of appetite from product from India, and they want product like supply chain independent of China. So our idea will be to go and more further make more value-added intermediates, which can be then fed into collaboratively to other companies who can add some more chemistry, and we are able to serve the global customers. So it will be very important, that we will expand our chemistry skills, and then we can collaborate with other companies' chemistries and combine, to serve the customers. Other point what you had mentioned was on the government side. I think Indian government should a clear-cut policy for next 10 years so that we have there is a potential to reach maybe 70 to 100 billion trade surplus, which should cover everything from infrastructure to duty to tariff to FTA to environment, research and development support. Otherwise, this year we had a little bit trade surplus. After 10 years also we might stare at a trade deficit. So it's a very important that this is the, I would say, the best industry to be in. It's a silver spot. You have a domestic growth, you have got export growth and import substitution. No other industry has got this three-leg growth opportunity. Now, government if has to come out with a good policy, and industry, what industry has to do is research, safety, health, environment, and investment. So these are the things which industry will have to do.
So what is stopping the government, sir, when you have all the three ingredients? What is stopping the government not to make it ease of business, providing support, and then reducing the fiscal deficit, and also bringing up revenue for them as well as employment opportunities? So what is stopping? Because you have been closely interacting with the government. What is the pain point of the government that they are not been able to do it in the past?
Pain point is, I think, the pain point is that the industry is not integrated and collaborating. Different associations, exporters, and basic chemicals, they will fight with each other. So there is no collaborative overall approach. We have it would be a good idea to increase the import duty across the board so that there is no duty inversion, and that increase in import duty will encourage investment in certain key products where we are currently India doesn't have the scale. But if you go in asking for increase in import duty on one side, the exporter will fight it. So for exporter, then you have to increase the duty drawback. So that comprehensive nature, you have to have a very, very comprehensive policy, and also which can take care of all the sub-segments, which is currently missing. So my industry association has to give a very comprehensive picture to the government, what should be done. And I think it is possible that, enter all the industry segments should collaborate together and arrive at a draft and give it to the government.
So, Gogri sir, very honest feedback that industry associations should collaborate. Industries are collaborating, but industry associations are not collaborating in the same way which other countries are doing in a more efficient and in a more optimum way. Now I open the house for Q&A. We have received multiple questions. What I will do is I'm clubbing 3 or 4 of them in one go, and whoever among the speakers would like to answer, please feel free to unmute and give your answers. The first question is from Mr. Gaurav Jain. How does labor cost and logistics cost compares India with China? And Mr. Anuj Srivastav is talking about understanding international business, regulation and product usage compliances are also important. That is another part. Then Namrata talks about how students are going to benefit from analytics part of it. So I'm taking these 3 questions. One from Gaurav Jain on labor cost and logistics cost, India, China. Anuj Srivastav on understanding international business, regulation and product. And Namrata on analytics with respect to job opportunity. So, Mr. Ramachandran, you have raised your hand, so I would request you to answer a few of them. And would request you to be precise so that we can take more questions, sir.
Yeah, so in fact, I raised my hand to say that I need to get into another meeting, so to ask if I may excuse, but let me quickly, respond to this. I think, in today's age, particularly if you are in the chemical industry, if you don't know international rules and regulations, I think you are in for, serious trouble. And I think one of the edge that we have over China is our ability to understand regulatory environment, in the rest of the world, thanks to the English language advantage that we had. I think China has caught up in the last 10, 15 years quite rapidly. So my response to that is this is an absolute basic requirement if you're going to be in the international market.
Anybody would like to budge in? Sir, would request if you can join for another 15 minutes. We will try to wrap it up by 4:30, sir.
Just to add to that, Praveen, because for this international regulations, what we have done very often is working with the Indian foreign offices. So if you get in touch with them, you can have a lot of information, a lot of industry connects, and Indian foreign offices are, I think, over the last 5 years, we have used that extensively, and they are always willing to help. Of course, the regulatory in that country, they can, send a host of information, and that's very soon. I mean, that's probably, you can leverage that Indian foreign offices in our embassies in the respective countries.
Ankur, if you can talk about the analytics part.
Quickly, I think analytics going to play a significant role. We are talking about the Internet of Things and machine learning, and we see a lot of activity going to happen in terms of the preventive maintenance and the data gathering in and around plant and what to do with it. So if we're really talking about the whole chemical engineering, there will be a greater role for the analytics as we are looking at, because the industry is moving towards more data driven and efficiency based programs. So therefore, if anyone who's trying to add skill set of analytics into overall chemical engineering portfolio, I think this would be welcome thing. And there is a lot of capex lined up to within the industry to add those things.
Let me take the next set of questions, 3 questions. Mr. Kumarish Mishra talks about agriculture, chemical view, environment. That's the first. Mr. Amit Banchal talks about we have upstream of basic chemicals and we have end-use chemicals. But what is missing? And the third is Mr. Nirav Banker. He has dialed in for Europe. And his question is, large companies and SMEs, are they investing into CHAM meter and CHAM bid? So if anybody can take these 3 questions, one on agriculture, chemical view, environment, Mr. from Kumarish Mishra, upstream and basic chemicals we have both upstream or basic chemicals and we have end use chemicals, but what is missing? And the third is, do large companies and SMEs are investing in CHAM meter and CHAM bid? Because these are the tools which will help them as they move forward.
Maybe let me take the first question and let me make sure I understand. Is it agrochemicals and their impact on environment? Is that the question?
Yeah. Agrochemical with the environment into consideration.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So look, the regulations governing introduction of agrochemicals has constantly been going increasing, on almost on an annual basis, whereby if today you screen 10,000 different chemicals, the likelihood that you will end up with a product that meets the current regulatory environment and also meets the biological impact that chemical needs to have in order for it to be creating value to the farmer is like 1 in 10, 20,000 screening. Yeah. And it is also a well-known fact that if you have to bring a new agrochemical into the market today, from the time you discover that a molecule has perhaps biological benefits or biological effects, it takes about $150 to $200 million of studies, of various studies around its impact on environment, its impact on non-target organism, its toxicological impact, its physicochemical properties. And only after generating all this, and this takes about 8 to 10 years, are you allowed to register this product and are you allowed to market this product to the farmers? So all these things are ensuring that whatever new products that come out are environmentally benign. And because of these very, very strict regulations, it's also becoming more and more difficult, more and more expensive to get such products into the market. Okay, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think you have done it extremely well, sir.
Thank you.
Any other speaker would like to respond or?
Yeah.
Yeah, please go ahead, Gogri sir.
Intermediate question.
There is a problem with your sound, sir.
Generally require a players. So
Yeah, you can go ahead. Now it is audible. Gogri sir.
yeah, this most of these intermediates sometimes require a very it's a dedicated plant, so you require a scale for that, and then scale is sometimes missing. It's a chicken and egg kind of a situation. So you need a strong intermediate players who can give it to the multiple downstream companies.
Now I take the next set of questions. Mr. DP Mishra from ICC has posted a question. Implementation of PCPIR is a must, and he gave an example of Paradeep, where Government of Odisha and Government of India should work together and also see how they can collaborate in a big way. Mr. Mitesh Shah talks about without government support, can we see strong growth of industry for the next decade? And Mr. Pandurang Langde talks about automation can address cost structure up to some level, but how do we address input cost? So one is on PCPIR, the second is on without government support, how can we grow? And the third is automation can address cost structure, but how do we address input cost? So Ankit, can you take, would you like to take some of them?
So the PCPIR that is there in the Dahej area, that's what you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that there was a lot of, we recently acquired a land over there in Saikha GIDC, which is close to the Dahej. So the entire process is actually quite long, and finding a big plot, we bought about 5 lakh meters. So that was a challenge, it took us about 8 to 10 months just to find a large piece of land. So the availability is always already a question, and the related infrastructure is also an issue. So for example, the CETP that was supposed to start in Saikha about 6 months ago, which was just started last week. Also the CETP in Dahej, that started last year, but it's still facing issues. So PCPIR, as a model, I think it's a great idea, but the execution is not as smooth as it should be.
And how do we reduce the input cost? So anybody would like to take? Mr. Deshpande?
Take this automation versus input technology. Actually, this question is linked to the whole PCPIR thing. In fact, that the reason to have a petrochemical hub that you want people feedstock in the industry, which controls a major part of the feedstock. India is deficient on a feedstock. It is well known. Unless you have a structural collaboration in form of PCPIR and other things in place, we will not be able to. As the geopolitics changes, you see lower crude oil prices, you see shale becoming more and more available. But it will not be imported feedstock will never give India an advantage, even if it is available. What a domestic collaboration can do. So automation is a time gap arrangement. It will help you to gain 3-4% EBITDA point on what we are operating. The inherent deficiency of the feedstock has to be sorted out in form of collaborative.
And Mr. Deshpande, if you can
so just
talk
to
about
add
the
on
input
the
cost.
on the input cost, of course, collaboration and PCPIR we have talked about. One of the other element of input cost is logistics cost. So it's a time when we have huge swaths of rivers, waterland, either sea or rivers. Now, I mean, if you go in China, I was told 70% of the goods movement happens through waterways. You can find less than 70. I mean, 30% is through the roads or rails. So they have leveraged the waterway to a great extent, and logistics in some of the chemicals can be as high as 20-25% of your cost, depending on which product you're talking about. So that's where I think government can play a big role. I mean, some steps have already started where the first pilot has happened from Varanasi to Bangladesh, which has just started, where and we are near to Varanasi, so we have been using those. So similar kind more development should happen. I mean, that will be a main thing to reduce the significant cost in logistics.
Now I take the next set of questions. One is on, do we see an increase in R&D investment? This is from a person who has just not given his name. And the second is, how is Indian chemical industry addressing opportunities thrown by macro shifts? So he's talking about the semiconductor industry, the batteries, the EV batteries which are coming out. So how is the chemical industry gearing up for this new type of industry which is coming up? And the third question is about hazardous chemical. I think you all have already explained to it in detail, but he's talking about graphite can handle wet chlorine provided manufacturer give it a try. So this is from Krunal Kirdavkar, which is how wet chlorine can provide, how graphite can handle wet chlorine. When Vijay Pashupati talks about the new industries which are coming up and how chemical industry is coping with it, and the substantial investment in R&D. So these are the three next set of questions. Gogri sir, if you can take the R&D part, because you are doing a lot of R&D within the country.
Yeah, I know. R&D investment will be the key, for all this converting opportunity. So I think at individual company level, most of the companies will do, but open R&D kind of a structure can help further. Where smaller companies can pick up from the institute, which was the model which China had. That can be a useful model. And other point is also very important is mega trend. Also, Indian chemical industry should keep an eye on that. All this EV and all that. So that might also throw up a lot of opportunity. So definitely it is worth looking at that area also.
Any other speaker would like to take up the remaining part, the new technologies which are coming up?
Yeah, I can add a couple of points. I think the entire EV, or I would rather term it as broader electronic chemicals, by and large, it has been absent in India. It's a sizable market if you look from a global specialty perspective. Now with all the shift that is happening, especially already mobile phones we are talking about building in India. Of lately, solar panels we are talking about making in India and raising tariff from import to China. I think that's one opportunity on the horizon which should come up. Even some of the other segments like industrial cleaners and stuff, we are not so big the way we can be. So I mean, some of those are definitely promising. My sense is probably one of the existing players probably can take that up and look that into, rather than a completely ground up guy coming for there, because you still have to deal with all the regulations and the whereabouts and the business knowledge. So I think definitely on the horizon, interesting from our point.
And would you somebody can take up on how graphite can handle wet chlorine? Ankur, can you throw some light on this?
Well, see, the whole application of graphite handling wet chlorine has been experimented, to be honest. But looking at the cost and effluent structure, it hasn't yielded much result. So if you really ask me, is industry and anyone is doing too much about it? We haven't seen lately any investment around this area.
So let me take the last set of questions, 3 or 4 questions, and then I will wind it up. We are another 5 minutes from the 4:30 deadline that I had extended it without taking your permission. One is on development of flow chemistry in India by Sachin Bhosle. He's talking about what's the development on the flow chemistry part. Then an anonymous attendee talks about what can be done to increase the level of trust among Indian companies and or Indian arms of global MNCs to collaborate with each other. I think this was beautifully put by some of our speakers about IP, and I think, but we can take it up also with our panelists. Then one more was with respect to Mr. Ramachandran, so he has already left. And the third is on digitization of chemical supply chain. So one is on digitization of chemical supply chain. The second is on a development of flow chemistry, and the third is on trust between global MNCs and Indian arms. So Indian arm of global MNCs and Indian companies.
Let me take a shot on the digitization. So, because I think that's something which is already happening. I mean, you see a number of companies working on outbound logistics, of course, in a big way to see, how, I mean, simple thing like, where is my truck? I mean, can I see my vehicle once it leaves your factory gate? So a lot of work has happened. I mean, somebody like us, we are kind of doing a lot of work in each and every customer's, the moment their vehicle leaves their factory gate, they know exactly where they are. So on the supply chain side, similarly, so in the inbound logistics also, there are a number of companies like Trivago who are doing logistics digitization to speed up the overall time it takes for the material to reach from one corner of India to another. So that's something which is happening, and I'm sure people in this panel, I mean, a lot of their companies are also doing such things.
And anybody would like to take it up, take the remaining questions? Sudeep, would you respond or?
Sure, Praveen. Sorry, if you can recap the next question.
One was on development of flow chemistry in India.
I don't think I'm best suited for that. I can take the third one.
And the other was on the level of trust how between Indian companies and Indian arm of global MNCs.
Sure. I mean, I can take up that one. I mean, look, there are already signs that it's improving a bit, right? I mean, we have already heard BASF announcing petrochemical with Adani. So some of that trust is coming up. I think some of the points highlighted earlier in terms of consistency of policies, in terms of respect for IP and a joint venture. I think some of those things will need to fall in place for this to happen. But if I compare last 10 years versus last 2 years, I think we have moved forward on that. I mean, I see a lot of MNCs now either announcing or looking out to get into Indian chemical space, typically in a joint venture format with some of the Indian players. I also see that, I mean, probably Mr. Gogri is, can explain it, but a lot of strategic deals between Western players and Indian producers make in India for the global. I think those are also happening. So those are all reflective of improving trust in the sector.
Ankit, would you like to respond to some of them, or?
I can respond about the flow chemistry part. The continuous process is there in some of the chemical processes, but then many intermediates, dye-stuff pigments, all these such chemicals, agrochemicals, they have a more common batch type processes. So I think the entire processes are probably not possible to convert into flow chemistry. But what I have observed in my about 15 years of career, that there is definitely continuous attempts of making at least the smaller processes, part processes, into convert them into a continuous ones. So there is definitely a improvisation there in the industry.
Thanks, Ankit, and I would like to thank all my panelists from the bottom of my heart, and also all delegates who took time out from the busy schedule to attend this particular conference. My special thanks to Mr. Rajendra Gogri, the Chairman and Managing Director, Aarti Industries, Dr. Raman Ramachandran, MD and CEO, Pi Industries, Mr. Shailendra Deshpande, Joint President and Chief Marketing Officer, Grasim Industries, Mr. Ankur Singh, Head Strategy and Business Development, DCM Sriram, Mr. Ankit Patel, Executive Director, Bodil Chemicals, Mr. Sudeep Maheshwari, Senior Principal, Kearney. And so a big thanks to all of them for giving us insights about the industry, knowing the fact that we are all trying to restructure ourselves or rejuvenate ourselves, keeping COVID into mind. And also, on the other hand, we are also looking at expansion in a very big way. So I would like to thank all of them. I would like to thank each one of you for being a part of this interactive e-conference. And I hope you all have got valuable inputs on how India will accelerate their growth story by creating collaborative growth ecosystem. Indian Chemical News will host a series of e-conference in consultation with the industry. Please visit our website, indianchemicalnews.com, and give us your valuable feedback with respect to the content or with respect to the new topics for e-conference or webinars that we are planning to do in future. This is Praveen Prashant signing off for now, and we'll meet you live in the next e-conference. Many, many thanks to all my esteemed speaker guests. Thank you, sir.